following program is recorded live and intended for all audiences.
Radio is scripted now. We just come up with it. We don't use computers. We don't rehearse. We're going to talk about this next. We're going to talk about them. We're going to talk about the Bulls. And then we're going to have Brad Bixon. And then we're going to have all this. No. If you don't know what you're going to talk about in the top of your head before a show, you shouldn't be in the business. I don't know what you got. I feel like Vince Vaughn in a couple's retreat. The Sharks are circling. Old school, baby.
You're listening to the Mike North Advantage, and it begins right now.
That's right. The Mike North Advantage starts right now. I am Aldo Gandia, Mike's wingman, and we have another very special Monday night edition of the Mike North Advantage. We will, of course, talk about the U.S. Open, that horrendous road trip by the Chicago Cubs, the inability of the White Sox to get over 500 and stay there, and more. But first and foremost, Mike has a very special guest, and I can't wait to hear this interview. First, let me greet the man. Mike North, how are you, my friend?
I'm great, Aldo, as usual. Going to play a little golf tomorrow morning. Got to get lathered up, so we're going to have our interview tonight. You know, we've had them all on. And by the way, I've had some great guys and great people that I've worked with in the past. Guys like, Aldo, the Gandia, the guy you just heard from. Great co-host. Also, Dan Jiggets, of course, and Doug Buffone. And Andy Furman, nationally. So, and I've worked with a lot of substitute co-hosts over the years and other people that I'm sure I have in my mind. But, when we started talking about 9 months ago, about a year ago, about doing a show, handicap show, it took us about 8-9 months to really iron everything out at ESPN 1000. But let me tell you, first of all, with Bears Bourbon, Vegas Scores and Odds, I have the greatest. The same thing goes with this next gentleman. Class act, a guy that, does it. He's not a one-trick pony, knows what you got to know about sports, but he's also a great handicapper. Also a bourbon expert. We'll talk to him about that because I got some bourbons I want to throw his way. But when it comes to just knowing his stuff and being the right guy for a brand new great show like The Odds Couple, which is doing fabulous on ESPN 1000, I understand, and now we're getting an encore on Saturday. We're on Friday night, of course, from 6 to 7, and then we have an encore on Saturday morning from 8 to 9. And boy, did I love the encore, because when you have a winning week, as a crew and individually, it's beautiful. Other encores, you want to say something different, hopefully, but it comes out the same way. So I'm pleased to have on a guy that I'm enjoying working with at ESPN 1000, Carmen DeFalco. What's up, brother?
Gentlemen, it's a pleasure. I don't know if I can live up to that introduction, Mike. You're too kind. It's been so much fun. We've done, I think, it's been 13 weeks, Mike, already? I mean, the time's flying that we're doing Odds Couple. And when Adam Delavin first came up to me, I don't know, it was in either late January, early February, and he pulled me aside and he said, listen, this gambling thing is going to get going. I mean, we knew at some point it was going to be legal, and the company wants to do more and more about it. It's out in the open now. And Adam Delavin is our program director at ESPN Chicago, at ESPN 1000. He said, we've been talking to Mike North. And I said, really? He said, we're talking to Mike. We're going to do a show. What do you think about driving it? And I didn't have to think twice. I'm like, absolutely. Are you kidding? I mean, sports and gambling and to have fun and to do it with Mike, who I thought Mike was retired for good. I didn't know. He goes, he's coming out of retirement and he's going to talk sports gambling and sports handicapping. And I said, absolutely. I mean, we have such a good time. The Odds Couple is a nice play on words. Mike and I from different eras, but I grew up painting houses in the summers late in my formative years in early 90s when I was finishing high school and into college. I spent 2 summers painting houses for JF Painting, and this is like 94, 95. We used to spend all day outside laying paint on these condominium complexes in Naperville and Wheaton and Warrenville, and we had Mike and Jigs on, and it's been getting to know Mike a little bit over the years, it's been fun, and it's a blast doing the show so far. I can't wait for football, Mike, as you know. I mean,
yeah, well,
we came to the
realization at the right time.
It's all baseball.
Yeah, we started at the right time. Major League Baseball season in the NHL. But we've been holding our own. We went 4-1 this past week. I'll tell you what bugs me sometimes, though, Carmen, and I don't know if it bugs you. And then I want to get to some personal stuff, because the one suspicion I have about you, there's no way a man of your ilk. You got to be on Wikipedia. I looked up. Are you on Wikipedia? I couldn't find you. I don't know where you came from. I'm trying to figure out if you were born in this country, because only two people I know, so far as I've looked up, don't have Wikipedia. You and Field Yates.
I'm shocked Field doesn't. I'm not so surprised I don't, but I'm shocked Field doesn't.
You deserve. I'm just saying right now, Wikipedia, wake up. This guy is a stud. Let's talk about where you're from. You brought up a restaurant a few weeks ago that you guys used to go to 1,000 times. Where are you from? Where'd you go to high school?
Lived in Chicago my entire life, or the area, I should say. Bourbon in Naperville. Went to high school at Naperville North, class of '94. Went to college in the city at Columbia College. A lot of people probably know it's a small liberal arts school. I pretty much knew what I wanted to do. I didn't necessarily know it was going to be sports radio at the time, but I wanted to do radio. I mean, like I said, I used to listen to...
What kind of radio did you want to do?
Well, I loved Johnny B. I still to this day love Howard Stern. I mean, Howard and Johnny are probably... I kind of wanted to do that type of radio. I wanted to just have fun. I wanted it to be funny. I don't know much about music. I'm not a music guy, so I knew I would never really be able to be a disc jockey. But I wanted to just get on the radio and do characters and be funny, be like Kevin Matthews, be like Danny Bonaducci.
Sure.
I love those guys. I love the old lineup on the loop. So I picked a school where I could just kind of focus on that. And, more and more as, you guys grew at the other place. And by the time I was just about to get out of college is when ESPN came in, and I realized that, hey, why not something like sports talk radio? Because I was a sports junkie too. I mean, that was it. I knew at a young age I was not good enough to play professionally. That was always my dream. And sometimes the gods just don't smile upon you in that certain regard. And I knew by the time I was a teenager, I wasn't going to be a pro hockey player or a pro baseball player. So I said, how about talking about sports? And, somehow it's worked out, Mike. I don't know how, but it has.
No, you've done a great job in Yurko too. I want you... a few words about Yurko. I mean, he's been working there now for a long time. You got there, I believe, in '98, if I'm not mistaken, if I read it right. And Yurko and you have done a hell of a job, and I just want to commend him, too, because, he's a guy that was a veteran. I'm sure that he's helped you along the way, and now you guys have helped each other. How long have you guys been together now?
So we've been doing a show together 10 years already. It was 2009 that we started. Wow. Yeah, I know. It's crazy. He started at the station in 2001, so it was about a year and a half after his career ended. He came back to Chicago after that last year in Cleveland. He had a bad injury. That's when he tore his hamstring right off the bone, and he knew he was done. That 10-year career, he knew he was done. So he came home, and Mike, Yerk's got the gregarious personality. He's never been afraid to speak his mind.
Really a nice guy too. His heart's on his sleeve.
He's great. We have a lot of fun together. I love him. I mean, I've watched his kids grow up over the years. I think we do well together because we are a little different. I mean, Yerk is just Yerk loves to play the contrarian. He doesn't mind if he's on the opposite side, and he's the only one over there. He's not afraid to speak his mind. He never has been, and that's what I love about him. And somehow, even after 10 years, in radio, that's an eternity, but we still like going to work together with one another. So it's still great. Fun.
It is, and I got to tell you, what is fun is winning too, because like I told you at the very beginning, we went 4-1 this week, and I've been hot here at Bears Ballroom. But let me ask you, does it bug you now? Because if we have a good day on the show, I could have a money day where I lose some other day, and I don't give a damn. I'd rather have the good day on the show. I'm that sick. You know what I mean?
I know.
Because we're trying to build credibility. It's not about, you want to win money for other people, but you also want to give out. I think we've done a good job at laying things out. I think the thing that you've done great is introduce or help me introduce and bring, the minus 160s, the plus 150s, the run lines. I think it's going to take some people time, if it's new for them. Because I've been doing it for 40 years. You've been doing it probably for 20, 25 years.
Yeah,
and
20, yeah.
You know what? It's not going to be overnight for new people, and that's why we're trying to give out winners too.
Yeah, but you make the point all the time, and you just made it again, and I think you're right, that we both feel an amazing amount of pressure. And I think anybody that's doing this now in the media, that is, if you're hosting a gambling show, I think that we're all putting an amazing amount of pressure on ourselves to do well.
That's
because you want to have that credibility. You want people to kind of be able to tune in and think, these guys do know what they're talking about, and I'm going to get some good advice. They're not always going to be winners. I mean, it's impossible. It's, but if you can get over that 55%, if you can get to 65% where you're routinely making money and you're betting the right way, and Mike a few weeks ago talked about the idea of finding, structuring how you're going to wager and the units you're going to wager. If you listen to us and you do it smartly, you're making some money right now, and that's what we're striving for. You want to do well because you want people to be able to sort of reap the rewards and the benefits with you, and you want to prove to them that we kind of know what we're talking about. We're having fun. We know what we're talking about, and it's a good place to get solid gambling advice and breakdown and analysis.
And you know what? Also, I have little side things that I try to do, like golf betting or horse racing with the long shot method. Now, yesterday, I had a live golfer, Justin Rose.
Yeah.
Alive, but he just disappointed the daylights out of me. Everybody was talking about his cool, calm demeanor. Well, maybe you could be cool on the outside, churning on the inside. First of all, Gary Woodland, to me, just stepped up. I mean, you're going against Koepka. Rose has that aura about him that he's calm, he's cool. You had other people chasing him. What'd you think of the performance?
I thought he was great. I mean, he's always the last 6, 7, 8 years or so. We do these pools for all the majors every single year. And Woodland's always a guy that people are willing to take a little bit of a risk on because he bombs the ball. And so much of the game is, set up for length these days. And Woodland hits it about as far as anybody. So I can't tell you how many times in the last, say, maybe just 5 or 6 years, 4 majors a year, we do these pools. And I've called Gary Woodland's name. And at the end of the tournament, you're always a little bit disappointed. Kid you not, Wednesday, we're having our draft. I think Randy Merkin actually took Gary Woodland, or one of the guys at the office took Gary Woodland, and I said, Gary just doesn't have it. And I look like an idiot, of course. I was like, I'm always picking Gary Woodland. I'm glad I passed on him this time. You can have him. He doesn't have the game for it. And then he goes out and he plays great. Go figure. But he was so steady. He was so calm. He was so great on the greens. When he had to make a big putt Saturday and Sunday, he made it. And then the 2 shots that I think are going to stand out to me from this tournament will be the 5-iron on 14 on the par 5. It took an amazing amount of guts, I think, even to try to execute that shot from about 250 yards, and then the chip on 17. When he had to be great and when he had to make a clutch shot or a clutch putt, he made it. And congrats to Gary Woodland. It was Pebble is something to look at and something to behold. Having Brooks Koepka kind of right there going for 3 in a row added to the drama yesterday. I thought you were in great shape, to be honest, Mike, with Justin Rose. He's such a great ball striker. It just didn't happen. And there's no way to, from a handicap standpoint.
He's got no sack. That's it with him. I've had it with him. He's got no sack.
But he's won one of them before. But he's won one. I mean, it's like you had a good pick, and you handicapped it right, and then all of a sudden he can't put a good ball to the green. Now he putted his ass off too. I mean, he was incredible. Some of the putts he made to just kind of keep him in it.
I thought the guy played mistake-free. I mean, as far as mistakes go, he covered his mistakes well. Look, it was a great tournament. I love the fact that they play it all day long. I mean, I couldn't believe I'm watching golf for 11 hours. From I mean, to me, that's heaven on earth. And I wish all the tournaments would do that. I also think that Tiger was a big disappointment. I had told everybody beforehand, Phil Mickelson's just there for show. I think his game's starting to wane now. I think he probably had his, wouldn't you say, Carmen, his last hope for a win at the U.S. Open?
Probably. I think it's sailed. I think that ship has sailed. Yeah, I mean, he's going to go down. I don't know. He's finished second, I think, 6 times or something, right?
Right.
I think.
Exactly.
I don't think he's going to get one. I think, age just starts to catch up to you. These young guys today are so good. They hit it so hard and far. They're mentally tough. I mean, these guys that grew up sort of idolizing Tiger are now in their golfing prime, and they have an attitude, a swag about them. At least a lot of them do. It's going to be tough for Tiger, to be honest. As great as the performance at the Masters was, they're just the great advantage that he once had over the field is pretty much gone. And for Phil too, age eventually, even in golf, kind of catches up with you, and I think Phil's best days are behind him, and I think he's going to go down.
Tiger looked like me on Rush Street at 1 a.m. in 1997. I just exhausted at the end of the night.
Yeah.
Geez, the guy just looked like he was absolutely beat. It was a beautiful tournament. I got to just say something about that young lady in the Special Olympics, because I was thinking about this. I used to play Park District basketball, and a lot of the parks, like Independence Park on Irving, Kosciuszko Park, they had special education classes. I don't know if they still do. And I met a lot of the kids back in the day when I was playing park ball and stuff. And they were very talented, and they had a Special Olympics program. They'd be represented at the Special Olympics, that park, Independence. Great teachers. They're very patient. And that little girl's phenomenal. But believe me, folks, not only is it her, there's a lot of them like that, and they are inspirations. They will bust their tail to try to win, and they enjoy what they do, period.
Like a pure form of sports still. Yeah.
They
totally pure
sport.
Form of sports, yeah.
You know what's, I mean, seriously, if you look, is there any discussion in my eyes that she had an impact on yesterday, or I'm not an over-dramatic guy. I don't buy into all the cliches. You know that, Carm. But am I wrong when they showed him at the Waste Management and he said it changed his life, that helped him get through yesterday with her little slogan, I can do this, and stuff like that? Am I being too melodramatic like everybody else?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I think maybe he did draw some inspiration from that, honestly. I mean, it was a cool story when it happened, and it was kind of came full circle over the weekend. So I don't think you're being too melodramatic about it at all. I mean, and it's a great organization. Did the Polar Plunge with Special Olympics a few years ago. I mean, everything they do, it's a wonderful initiative and a wonderful thing. I mean, it really is.
I was at the Polar Plunge one year. How about this dressing room? Me, Ed Burke, and Superintendent Phil Klein all staring at each other, getting ready to go into the Polar Plunge in zero weather. You know what's great about the Polar Plunge? Oh, my God. Ed Burke and the Skivvies. Look out. That's all I'm saying.
I can only imagine. I don't even want to picture them. I'm trying not to.
So let's talk real quick, and then we're going to turn it over to Aldo in a few minutes, and he's going to have a couple questions for you, plus the chat board. The bourbon thing, I think it's a good little deal, because when I was first into sports radio, I told these guys, you got to talk about more than just sports. And they fought me on it for a while. And I said, you got to be like, talk about girls. You got to talk about movies. You got to talk about booze. You got to talk about, of course, sports. But you can mix all that in. It can be 75, 80% sports. So this bourbon thing, and the thing Zetterman does is cool, because it gives you an opportunity to show a different side of you. And we didn't have that opportunity because there was no Twitter back then. But I would try to show the other side of me, the hot dog stand and all that, that there's more to life than just sports. And I think you've pulled that off pretty good, because this bourbon thing seems to be, people associate you not only with sports talk, but with the bourbon.
Yeah, and I think social media has, for all the negative crap that's usually out there, and for some of the darker sides of social media, I think it is, like, that aspect of it, what you just mentioned, Mike, is good for all of us in this business now. Like, it's kind of like added a content almost to kind of who we are and what we do. And it is a great sort of outlet, a great avenue to be able to just talk about some of the other fun stuff, whether it is movies or some other passion you might have. If it's health and nutrition, fitness, bourbon, in this case, food. I talk about food a lot there too because I love to cook. And, I've kind of turned my social media in a way, while I always put my sports thoughts out there, especially when I'm watching games and things like that. But a lot of my social media has become talking about bourbon and doing just cooking demonstrations. I'll do some of my favorite dishes. I edit it myself in iMovie and I can put it up on my YouTube page and link it to Twitter and talk to people there about cooking tips, grilling tips, and it's fabulous. So there's 75-80% of Twitter might be just wrong and evil and vile and filthy, but there is still a nice component to it. And for guys like us, it's invaluable just to kind of do other things. I love it.
Well, I got to tell you, my dad, and we've discussed this, there's no doubt in my mind men like him built this country on doers, JB. They didn't have the extravaganzas that they have now, even though there's been old bourbons, old scotches, stuff for years. So my point is, we were talking last week and we had some fun, but I'm starting to look into, Four Roses, for instance. It's sort of a thing to become interested in. It's sort of like it's become the new wine,
Yes.
Just like craft beer. That was never in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. It was Hams, Schlitz, good luck, have some Ripple before you grow up, and then maybe some Manischewitz, and just keep moving. But now it's just turned into an industry in itself, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, everything. The craft beer thing has gone crazy, and that started probably about the time Sam Adams got real popular 25 years ago or so. But yeah, bourbon in the last 10 years.
I interviewed him in the studio when he was first starting, and he told me he had this. Jiggs and I interviewed him, and he came in, the president, and he's still going strong. It's great to see him in the commercials. Took a big chance, and look what he did.
He's the best. I mean, he was literally going bar to bar, just like with that stuff in his trunk, just trying to get bars in liquor stores to sell it. And look what it's done to this sort of American craft. I don't even want to say revival because it wasn't really reviving. It was starting. I mean, it's an amazing thing. And bourbon in the last 10 years has just exploded in popularity. I mean, bourbon and rye. I mean, rye was literally dead. I mean, bourbon was on life support 25, 35, 40 years ago. Rye was dead. And it's a shame because they truly are our native spirits. I mean, Scottish and English settlers who were and immigrants who were leaving that part of the world where they had been making whiskey for centuries came here, and they just applied what they knew there. Instead of using mostly barley, they used the crops that they found here: corn, rye, wheat. And rye and bourbon are our native spirits, and they were pretty much dead. Rye certainly was. And to see the comeback that they have made, I think, is tremendous. I used to get made fun of a lot in my 20s by most of my friends for drinking bourbon. They all called me grandpa every time I would drink a bourbon or order an old-fashioned. But it's kind of cool that it's made this amazing comeback. It's as popular as it's been since before Prohibition. And, they truly are our native spirits. And I think it's very cool that they've made such a big comeback. And I love them both, especially bourbon. I love bourbon.
You can follow me at Carmen DeFalco, folks, and check out the Bourbon Talk and anything, sports talk, anything else you want to talk to. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, my guy, Aldo Gandia, with a couple questions, of course, and with the chat board. Aldo!
Hey, we've got a lot of activity in the chat room. Heidi Zimmerman just posted that she is amazed with your knowledge of bourbon, and she's following you now on Twitter as soon as possible. So you've got another follower, at least one more follower. I know you've got many more coming after this show.
I'll take it.
Absolutely. So Steven Zimmerman wants your recommendation on any bourbon or bourbons that are quality bourbons under $40.
Okay, under 40. There's a bunch of them, and everybody thinks you have to spend a lot of money, but you don't. For under 40, I would look. Mike mentioned one of them, the Four Roses, the small batch. The single barrel is going to run a little bit more, but the small batch is still excellent. You can get that for right around 40, maybe a little bit less. There's a product called Evan Williams Single Barrel from Heaven Hill. That is a single barrel bourbon, so that means they're not mixing it with other barrels. It's all it all comes from from one barrel that the master distiller picks, and it's about 10-year-old bourbon that is $30, where it's just you can't find 10-year-old single barrels for that price anymore. It's a pretty solid bottle of bourbon. It's called Evan Williams Single Barrel. And then people are always amazed when I mention this one, but Wild Turkey 101, the flagship of Wild Turkey. It is 101 proof. It is classic Jimmy and Eddie Russell. It is about $22 to $25 a bottle, and it is absolutely fantastic to just drink on its own, to make with cocktails. You really can't go wrong. So I'd say those three are a good place to start.
Single barrel, what exactly does that mean?
So that, like I said, the master distiller will find one barrel where every bottle from, what they do normally is they're blending it. The master distillers want to find consistency. So what they do is they'll take maybe 100 to 150 different barrels from different spots in the warehouse. The whiskey ages slightly differently depending on where it is in the warehouse. And these warehouses are huge. These rick houses are, they have 25,000 barrels in there. So they'll usually pull a bunch of barrels from different spots in the warehouse, and then they'll blend it to what they think is sort of the perfect idea and representation that their distillery is going for over and over again. When they blend it, they can kind of get a very similar taste profile, and that's why they do it. Single barrel just means they find one that they think is absolutely fantastic. It might have a slightly different profile than the single barrel right next to it, but they like it so much that they just bottle. They might get, let's say, 70 or 100 bottles out of it, whatever they get out of it. They take one barrel, and that's it. It is not blended or mixed with any other barrel in the warehouse. And it started kind of as a way to push the idea of that there was sort of a craft movement happening in bourbon back in the 80s when nobody was buying it. And it took 20 or 25 years for it to really catch on, but it has become a very popular thing. It's not always the best. It doesn't have to be single barrel to be good, but they've become highly sought after because it usually indicates that the master distiller found one barrel that he thought was so good, they sent it to market without blending it with anything else.
Hart 4803 says that he bets that you are a Woodford Reserve kind of guy. Is that true?
I like Woodford. I like their double oaked, actually. I did a Whiskey Wednesday review not too long ago about their double oaked product, which I think is kind of cool. It's just, it's their regular Woodford Distillers Select, and then they call it finishing. So Chris Morris, their master distiller, will pull all this, their Distillers Select. They blend it together, and then they take a portion of it and they finish it in another oak barrel. And I like that double oaked. I think Woodford's a good bottle to always have on the bar because it's inexpensive. It's good. I wouldn't say it's great. It's good, and it's great for cocktails too. So if you've got the guys coming over and you're going to play cards or watch a big game, and maybe you want to, make Manhattans or Old Fashions for the night, a bottle of Woodford is a great, inexpensive bottle to have locked and loaded for that situation.
One more bourbon question, and then I got a couple of NFL questions for you. Kevin wants to know, Kevin was saying that he's a big Four Roses fan. What about Four Roses? And he likes it on the rocks. Now, when I've seen your videos, you are never drinking bourbon on the rocks. Is that a no-no for you, or is just
For me, I do not, but I would never tell anybody how to drink their whiskey. If you want to put a little water in there, if you want to throw an ice cube in there, that is absolutely fine. Don't let anybody, criticize you and chastise you otherwise. I just like it neat myself, but to each his or her own. And I'm a very big fan of Four Roses. I think there's some remarkable stuff. They're a smaller distillery. They don't produce as much. I think their single barrel is excellent and one of the best on the market. It's probably up to about $42 or $44 these days at most liquor stores. Certainly at Benny's, it's right in that range. I think it's really, really good. They're an interesting one because they have a bunch of different yeast strains that they do. Not every distillery is like this. Actually, I don't know of any others besides Four Roses. They have their yeast. A lot of places have been using yeast that has survived since about the time Prohibition ended. Jim Beam's using a yeast strain that is still alive from when Prohibition ended. And Booker Noe's father at that point was probably the master distiller back then. So, most distilleries have just one yeast strain, but Four Roses has 5. The guys at MGP in Indiana actually do it too.
Are you listening to this guy, Aldo? Are you listening to the knowledge of this man on this bourbon?
I am telling you.
It's
I've
amazing,
never seen so much activity in the chat room before. I am telling you, we've had hundreds of people in the chat room.
I never knew what one barrel was. I just thought, once that's over with, yet another barrel. I had no idea.
I'm telling you, people are so into bourbon now. It's amazing, and I think
cool.
it's really cool. But yeah, Four Roses is a great one. They've got a real high rye mash bill, so their bourbon's always a little bit spicier. It's got a great kick, and they make a wonderful product. There's no doubt about it.
All right, 2 questions on the NFL. Zim asks if you are buying into the Cleveland Browns hype.
Aldo, say that again. You were breaking up for a minute.
I'm sorry. Zim wanted to know if you are buying into all of the hype around the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, the Browns. Oh, boy. Not quite. I want them to still kind of prove it a little bit to me. I want Baker to, and that's not to say that I'm doubting him, but we've seen quarterbacks have string together 8, 10, 12 good games and then never really materialize into the quarterback that the hype machine makes them out to be. So I kind of still want to see a little bit on the Browns. I have a feeling they're going to be decent, and getting Beckham obviously helps. They're talented. Look, their offense, as long as Baker doesn't regress, they've got a talented offense. But I don't know, it's still Cleveland. So
I think they're the new Detroit Lions. Everybody they're waiting for the Lions.
I'm kind of agreeing with that.
And then that could be. They ride that wild roller coaster, like Mike said, that the Lions have done. And so Stafford can string together great games, and he's even had really good seasons. But the Lions have never consistently been the team that everybody sort of predicted they were going to be 5 or 6 years ago.
Mm-hmm. And my final question, I'll throw it to both you and Mike. Tell us, there's been a lot of hype regarding the Chicago Bears after the 100th anniversary. People are just talking Super Bowl. And the one thing that is perhaps the team's Achilles heel, at least right now, is the kicking situation. So wanted to know your opinion and Mike's opinion, if you guys can discuss it amongst yourself about this kicking situation with the Chicago Bears.
I'll let Mike start.
I told him, I said, bring in Parky. I said the same thing on Friday night, and you know what? Once I started talking to Carmen about it, I asked him the same questions I asked you, Aldo. Parky, this would have won the kicking competition they just had.
Probably.
Because I think I might have won the kicking competition. That's just the way I feel. Also, are we really at the point where we're so good that we're going to be mad? Because I was mad he was on TV too, but I don't know if that gives you a lifetime sentence. Plus, you're still paying the guy. Carmen, you can go ahead now.
I know. When Mike said it on Friday, my jaw hit the console. I said, if you would have given me 100 guesses, I don't think I would have said you're going to tell the Bears that they should maybe bring Cody Parkey back. We had a great, fun conversation about it Friday night on Odds Couple. I do think the ship has sailed on that. And maybe Mike's right. Why should that be a life sentence just going on TV? But I have heard that it really aggravated the brass over there, and it really aggravated Matt Nagy. And they want to be done with him. They feel like, and I don't think it's just that. Look, that double doink. Think about it. His first miss at Soldier Field, if he did come back, he's just never going to hear the end of it. He probably needs a clean start. He is still a free agent, but I have a feeling as kickers start to go down or kickers struggle, somebody's going to give him a shot. I think he needs a fresh start. But my God, how hard can it be to figure out the kicking position? Bring 50 of them in if you have to, and just let them battle. Get a hungry kid who's going to make $500,000 the way the kid in New York did last year, and again, we'll make the Pro Bowl for crying out loud. It can't be this hard to find a kicker, can it? It's insane.
They got to let go of the Robbie Gold thing. Go out and find somebody good.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, I think Parky's an outside chance. Hey, listen, buddy, we appreciate it. Carmen, outstanding. I will talk to you on Friday. I got to get a winner for your
Friday, buddy.
Yeah, because I won 4 in a row. Now I've lost 3 in a row. It's ridiculous. So I'll try to get 145 on Friday. Then the odds couple where we were 4-1. I was 2-1. Carmen was 2-0. We got it together, and we're going to get that going too. Appreciate it, my friend.
All right, guys. Anytime. It's been a pleasure.
Great stuff. Thank you very much.
Thanks,
All
Carmen.
right, guys. See you Friday.
You got it. That's Carmen DeFalco from ESPN 1000, another talent that I think is just starting to get into the starting to get his wings, man. I mean, he's been doing it a long time, but you know what? I think that, he's very diversified, Aldo. He knows how to. He did Bulls basketball. He worked his way up. He kept going. It was interesting in the 80s. He liked Brandmeier and those guys. Just like in the 70s, I liked Dahl. And then all of a sudden, sports radio, Jiggs and I came, and I know this. That station, not only Jiggs and I, but everybody else, helps steer people to get into sports radio. So it's great to hear it. And you know what? Like I said earlier, great to have with you. Great to have Carmen. So it was a lot of fun. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I mean, the activity in the chat room is off the boards. Carmen's a top 10
Carmen's
guest.
a popular guy.
Yeah. Carmen, thank you very much. Great guest from Brian Quinn. Steven Zimmerman, that was awesome. Hart 4803 says Carmen's a top 10 guest. And on the platitudes for Carmen DeFalco go. Great job on bringing him in. And, of course, the Odds Couple is the hottest show in Chicago sports radio. It's one that you have to tune into 6 p.m. Central on ESPN 1000 on your AM dial. And then is that a replay on Saturday morning?
Get the replay on Saturday, which is great because what's great is they wanted. I knew they're very happy with the show, from what I understand, and they decided after a month to do an encore. And what's great is if I mentioned Bears Barroom on the show. That's 2 mentions for Bears Barroom.
Yeah,
Vegas scores and odds. So they've allowed me to have a little leeway. Nice. I don't push it at any of my projects in anybody's face. And Carmen's been fantastic. Adam Delavan was the guy that took a shot because he told it, this nonsense. They hear all these stories about me, how tough I am to work with. It's always been nonsense. Now in the 90s, Aldo, when the station had to work, and you had to work hard, and you had to keep your nose to the grindstone. Yeah. Did I get on producers? Let's go. Let's do it this way, that way. Damn right. I did. And I don't regret it. Because, and the same thing with the other hosts. The hosts were the driving force, but those producers were the team. Yeah. They made the team. And you didn't really have to say much after you laid the law down. But if there were some slackers, they'd hear about it. That's just the way it was back then because we wanted to make it.
Yeah, excellent stuff. Really, really excellent. Okay, Let's talk a little bit about the Chicago sports scene now. The Chicago Cubs, a really, really tough road trip. I mean, they were in almost every game, but they come back with a 2-5 record on the road. What was your assessment of that? Do you have any concerns about these Chicago Cubs? Because personally, I see them, and sometimes I think, wow, this team is capable of winning the World Series. And then I get really depressed at the fact that they're just not coming through with wins when they should. What are your thoughts?
Well, I think what you got to do is when they go to L.A., I didn't feel confident when they went out there. I really didn't. And I don't think they played real good baseball. They didn't get timely hitting. Their pitching's starting to suffer. John Lester's been struggling of late. And when that happens, you're going to have second thoughts about a team, but I think they've proven. But here's the problem. I thought they'd be having some separation from Milwaukee. But Milwaukee going into tonight's game, I think they're playing the Dodgers now, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Maybe you could check that out. I'll check it myself on. I think they're playing tonight at 9 o'clock. Let me check real quick.
Dodgers are playing San Francisco.
Oh, they're playing the Giants.
Yeah.
Okay, Milwaukee is playing.
They got a day off tonight, I believe.
Okay, so that was my bad. Okay, beautiful. So they're not playing tonight. Perfect. Bottom line is, I thought that the Cubs would have a 3-4 game lead by now. Instead, it's Milwaukee that is the 1 game lead. Okay? Do the Cubs? It looks to me like the Cubs need the All-Star break already. and we got a ways to go before the All-Star break happens. Like I said, I'm concerned about Lester. He seems to be the guy that carries the load. I knew Hendricks was in trouble because if you don't have your location, you're going to get beat up. And by the way, the Dodgers are a great team.
Oh, yes.
I think Cub fans would even acknowledge, if you could have the Dodger team in Cub uniforms, would you take them or would you take this Cub team? Now, people have their favorite personalities, whether it's Rizzo, whether it's Bryant, whether it's Quintana. It doesn't matter. They have their favorite players. But to me, the Dodgers are the better team, so that didn't surprise me. But I want to see how they react the next time they play them.
Okay. That's fair.
And I hate the fact that Bryant is going to right field. He played him in right field the other day again.
Yeah.
I don't understand the platoon and stuff. I don't like it. I think if they do get a new manager, because I don't think he's coming back unless they go deep into the playoffs. And I like Joe. But if they get a new manager, I think one of the things that's going to happen is that certain guys are going to stay at one position.
Okay.
Funny. You know, I had my car at the garage yesterday and it didn't leak oil. All of a sudden, it's leaking oil.
What did you think about Yu Darvish's performance the other night?
I loved it.
Yeah, it looked
Look,
like
I don't want the guy to fail, but
Of
he's
course.
always, hey, we need him.
Yeah, exactly.
We need him.
Well, and this was it could be a career turning, at least with the Cubs, a career turning performance, because it appeared that Darvish was carrying this monkey on his shoulders, which was his disastrous postseason appearance or performance with the Dodgers before he joined the Cubs. And that apparently was really bothering him. And then he gets injured with the Cubs, but he goes to Los Angeles. He kind of maybe takes these demons or this monkey off his shoulders. Perhaps this is what's going to turn things around with him and the Cubs, because they really, as you just said, they really, really need him.
Well, they do need him, and here's what I told everybody on Bears Barroom way back then, when Aldo and I were young children. I said we needed, 12 wins out of him.
Yep.
12 wins, and we need more innings out of him. And now maybe he's turning it around. I think guys like Cole Hamels and John Lester, no matter if they're struggling or not, rub off on a guy. And here's another thing. When you see stud pitchers struggling, that doesn't mean it's okay for you to struggle, but what it says is if they struggle, I'm going to struggle. But you're right. He had to get some things straightened out, and maybe now he will become the pitcher that he was supposed to become, because he seems to have acquired a little bit more backbone. And the key is there hasn't been any twinges in his elbow. His wrist isn't bothering him. He doesn't have a fast heart rate. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He doesn't have a migraine. It seems like he's healthy, and that's the main thing with him.
Yep. And it's really going to help this team when Craig Kimbrell comes back. I believe he's making his first appearance tonight in the minors. He's supposed to pitch an inning or so, and it's possible that he could be with the major league team, the Chicago Cubs, by the end of the week or early next week. That will be a huge boost, although we probably should not expect much right away from Kimbrell. I mean, it's been, 8 months since he's thrown a major league baseball game, but you got to believe that this is the final piece for this team, correct?
They got to get Zobrist back. They're a different team without him. Mm-hmm. And there's an outside chance that I'm hearing maybe he'll come back. Right now, though, absolutely not. But that whole thing, my God, we got to get him back, man. I understand the problems. Let's try to straighten it out. I understand family first, and we talked about it. But aren't they a different team without him? He gave them so many options. Second base, right field, left field, winner, MVP, World Series, Kansas City, Chicago.
Yep.
Two teams you would never expect to win a World Series. Leader, mentor, right?
Yep. Yeah, you're totally right. And Theo Epstein said that there is a chance he may be back. He was quoted as saying his priorities right now have to be with his family situation. There could be a point later on where that would allow him to be ready and come back, but nothing's been determined just yet. I should say there's been some more definition too on how he hopes this thing might go. So hopefully, things are getting settled with his personal situation, and we could see him back in the hot days of summer.
He could be the next Schwarber. Remember Schwarber came out in September that year?
That was huge.
Played in the World Series, the playoffs, and started getting hot. Maybe, look, it would take him, I think now, 4 to 5 weeks, but where is he going to be mentally? Because this seems to have rocked his world. So, we'll see what happens. Wish him the best, but we need him, man.
Absolutely.
I'm sorry.
Totally with you
We
on
need
that.
him. I'll be the only guy to say it. We need him. I'm sorry you're going through the divorce. Let's go. We got to get you back on the field. Straighten it out. Come on, buddy. We need you. You were one of the reasons we picked. I picked you. So hopefully he'll come back.
Well, speaking from experience, I know that.
You think I can talk to him? You think they'll give me his number?
Yeah, absolutely. Let's call Theo.
Let me talk to the guy. Let's go.
I can speak from experience. The best way to get over a divorce is to go to work.
Go to work.
Exactly.
Play some baseball, man. I understand. But, man, you know what? Going to work doesn't mean you don't care about your family.
Absolutely,
Most
yes.
people have to.
Yep.
That are going through divorces.
You got it.
So, I mean, you got responsibilities too.
Mm-hmm.
I understand. Come on now. I need you. Oh, never mind. I don't want to make it about me. All right. So hopefully they'll get it together, and I'd like to see Ben come back. And that's out of respect, man.
Absolutely.
He's a hell of a ball player, man. He really is.
Absolutely. All right, let's turn our attention to the Chicago White Sox, because this team, and I fall in love with this team every time I see them play, but they are awfully frustrating. You talk about a streaky team. They lose 2 games to the Yankees. Before that, they won 2 games against the Yankees. And then they win 3 in a row, Yankees and the Nationals. And then they lost 2 in a row to the Royals. They won. They're just a veritable up and down team. And until they get a good winning streak going of 8-9 games, I don't think they're going to stay above 500 for the entire season. It's just so frustrating.
Well, you know what? I know today I just smiled a little bit. I go, Aldo's, I got to listen to him moan tonight because now they're 32 and 34. I had to listen to my buddy moan because here. I hope Hugh Darvish turns it around for good, right?
Yep.
Here's what I don't want to hear.
Okay.
That Ronaldo Lopez has figured things out, okay? just because you have one good game, am I right? I said it last week.
Totally.
The guy sucked for 5 games in a row.
Uh-huh.
I don't think Ronaldo Lopez is going to be very good. Giolito was unbelievable. Look, they split with the Yankees. That's fine. I like what they did, but they got to keep grinding away. They're 2 under 500. I would have liked to see them get 3 out of 4, but there's some people that probably thought they were going to lose 3 out of 4. So let's take the split. They had 2 stinkers the last 2 days, no doubt about it. And I just got to say this too. I admire the White Sox because they're playing better teams with much higher payrolls.
Really? Yes.
And they're holding their own.
Yep.
They're holding their own. They really, really are. So I admire them, but I also know this. When they play the Bostons of the world, the Yankees, they should have won. They should have gone 1-1 after winning the first 2. They should have at least split the next 2. They couldn't get it done. It just shows they're a young team. But I do know this. They're a lot better than I thought they were going to be, period.
Yeah,
and they're only 2 under 500. There's a lot of baseball left.
I love it, and every Sox fan in the chat room is loving it too. They love to hear you say that the Sox are better than we all thought, frankly. I mean, there aren't many Sox fans who perhaps had high expectations for this team coming in. And if they finish the season 500, I will be very, very pleased, particularly because I think they're drafting well and there's some really promising players in the farm system. All right, let's talk about this.
But they're 12 games back. I mean, it's done for the year. Cleveland's trying to catch him without Kluber, catch Minnesota.
Yep.
Minnesota's unconscious right now, a lot like Atlanta. Atlanta's won 10 out of their last 11. They're running the National League East.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm watching the Mets, okay? And the Mets yesterday, trying to climb back into the race, trying to get to 500.
Right.
What possesses a manager to sit 4 regulars and they lose 4-3 to St. Louis?
I don't get it.
What possesses any manager? I don't care who you are. In Little League, high school, you're trying to climb back into the race, and you sit 4 regulars. And thank God I had the run line in that game, 1.5. The people that bet the Mets to win the game got screwed by this Mickey Callaway or whatever the hell his name is. What a doofus. What a doofus. It's a Sunday game. People go to the ball game to see certain players, and you're sitting guys like Rosario and other people. It's nuts.
That is nuts. I'm totally with you. I know it's a long season, and you got to kind of manage, people.
Oh, they're baseball players.
Exactly. This isn't football.
Jesus. It's ridiculous because Minnesota's not. I mean, the Mets aren't that much out, and they gave St. Louis the game yesterday.
Yeah.
The team in our division just gave them the game.
Yes, very frustrating. All right.
Garbage.
Speaking of our division, we've got the Cubs.
A little hostile right now, getting a little sweat going.
Don't. I think you do every show. You get a little hostile. You get a little sweat going on.
Brazen. I get brazen.
That's my favorite word, brazen, right there.
That's your word. I got to bring it up. You're my guy. I got to keep you happy.
Thank you. All right. What about this Cubs Sox series? 2 games. I got to begin the Cubs Sox series talk by saying, isn't it really stupid of Major League Baseball to have a Cubs-Sox series on a Tuesday and Wednesday, the middle of the week, as opposed to having a weekend series? That doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, they treat these things like games now. Well, first of all, I think it's stupid to have 2 games. I mean, you should have a 4-game series.
Yes.
It's one of the, to me, it's the greatest, most underrated rivalry in all of sports, period. Over the Cardinals-Cubs, over the White Sox-Yankees. It's on a par with Green Bay and the Bears, only because it's the 2 teams from Chicago. And every time there's been fights, I was at the game when A.J. Brzezinski and Mike Barrett went at it. Me and P were sitting in the first row.
Whoa.
And we saw... It was a great fight. We were right there, man. A.J. slid into him. Barrett was feisty. He got up. I remember Mike Caruso in 1999 hitting the ball into the screen when the Sox needed it, and it ruined the Cubs' chances. It was one of those times where, the Cubs would, by losing, we were screwing ourselves, our own city.
Oh, man.
Because it knocked them out of the box. So... there's been some great times. I think it's a fierce rivalry. I think that the rumors being that the Cubs are treating them like the Mariners or the Marlins is going to get into the locker room. There was an article about it today saying that, the Cubs just look at them as another team. That's not the way this rivalry was built. Both teams, believe me, were aware of how guys were doing and everything else. So it should be interesting to see. But some of the most fierce games have been between these 2 teams.
Yep, I totally agree. And are you a fan of interleague baseball?
Yes. I you know what? It doesn't bother me. I think it's a shame that Ernie Banks never got to play at Yankee Stadium.
Yeah.
Okay?
I'm with you.
I think that's sad. I think it's sad that Ted Williams never got to play at Wrigley Field. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
So... I think it's better for the players. I think it's great to see players from the other league. If you only had one team in town, I mean, you never saw Mickey Mantle.
Yeah.
If you were, unless your team got into the World Series.
Right.
So it would have been cool back then. I understand why they didn't do it, but I think it's been great for baseball. Not every interleague series is going to work, but let me tell you something, folks. When two National League teams meet, like the Marlins versus, the Marlins versus Cincinnati, there could be a foul ball hitting the seats. Somebody will be there in 10 minutes. There's not a lot of people. Okay?
I hear you.
My God.
I hear you. Let's quickly go over the pitching matchups for the Sox-Cubs series. Ivan Nova is pitching. He's not had a great season, 3-5 with an ERA of 6.28, but he does have a 3-1 record with a 5.13 ERA a lifetime in 5 starts at Wrigley Field. That's not too bad. The ERA is up there.
I want to split. Listen, I don't want the Cubs to get I want Chicago to get into the playoffs. Either team win. Either team.
Okay.
So if we beat the Cubs twice. See how I said we?
Yes. I noticed that.
I just wanted to know where my last allegiance is, even though their organization sometimes aggravates the living piss out of me.
We've got more Sox fans in the chat room than we have Cubs fans, by the way. So you're making them happy.
Well, let me tell you something. If we beat the Cubs twice, we hurt the Cubs. If they beat us twice, they hurt us for the wild card. So for God's sake, Mike, don't act like 9-year-olds. Cubs are better than the Sox. Yeah, go get a milkshake, okay? I got things to do. I want to see both teams split. Period.
There you go. I love.
Am I right about that?
You know
I
what?
know what the Sox fans are going to say. Screw the Cubs. You know what?
Of course.
I got news for everybody. If you're asking me strategically and as a baseball man, not as a fan of the White Sox, excuse me, not as a fan of the White Sox, if you want to ask me what I want to really see happen for the good of Chicago playoff baseball, then I'd want the Cubs to win both games.
Okay. Because
they're our only chance, I think.
Yeah.
I don't think the Sox are even wild card worthy, even though they've done a great job in sticking in.
Well,
what do you think?
It's tough, Mike, because I really, truly am a Chicago sports fan. I like the Sox and I like the Cubs. And while I grew up more of a Cubs fan, over my adult life, I've become more of a Sox fan. And, I want
because you like the colors. You like the black and gray. I know you.
Yes, you're right. The uniforms have a big thing to do with it. There's no doubt about that.
As soon as you saw Chance the Rapper for White Sox fan, that just sealed it for you.
That is
Get
so
a White
true.
Sox cap on.
Now, the other pitching matchup that I must bring up is the one on Wednesday night because it's Lucas Giolito versus John Lester, and that is must-see TV.
Giolito's going to beat him, and Nova's going to get his ass kicked.
Ooh.
That's why they're going to go 1-1.
No. Lester and Giolito on Wednesday night. It's Nova.
Right, and they said Giolito's going to win, and then Nova's going to lose.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm with you on that. This Lucas Giolito, I tweeted this the other day. He's the only pitcher right now that I can think of on either team that if he's pitching, I want to buy a ticket and see that game live. He's become one of those pitchers. He's just phenomenal.
Do we know what they drew for the 4-game series? I know they had to draw over 100, right?
Oh, yes, they did. I don't have the exact figure in front of me,
right.
Mike, but I know.
Maybe one of the guys on the chat board can get for us. By the way, Giolito's Italian. Does this surprise you?
Of course not.
No.
You know, when a good pitcher.
I've got to be honest, I don't care what it is. It surprises the hell out of me.
There you go. There you go. All right.
Aren't you surprised how good he's been?
Oh, I truly am. I knew he had good stuff, but his major league performance up until recently had not been so sterling. It had been downright disappointing. Yep. But he's made some changes with his delivery, and now he is pitching the best baseball of just about any pitcher in the major leagues. So it has been fabulous. All right. When we come back on Wednesday, I hope.
Yes, sir. We got Vegas Scores and Odds. We got the podcast.
That's right.
We got Tonight we got the podcast. We have Vegas Scores and Odds at 3 o'clock, 3 to 4. Listen to this. I was 1-1 last week on the show. The chat board saved my butt because I didn't know about the pitching change because they made a late pitching change, and then we found out Edwin Jackson was being replaced by Marcus Stroman. Stroman ends up winning the game. And I got to be honest with you, they saved me. We ended up doing pretty good. I'm having a good year on Vegas Scores and Odds and with the Bears Barroom. In fact, I got a late pick for tonight for everybody here.
Sweet.
And Aldo, can you keep track? I'm winning so much, I'm starting to get confused about what show's winning and what show isn't. I really am. I'm not trying to be cocky or anything. Although I did have a 6-6 week with Vegas Scores and Odds, so I cooled off with them. I mean, it just happens, ladies and gentlemen. Like Carmen said, that's just the way it is. You know what I'm saying? So I got one game for everybody tonight. I got the under 8 in the Brewers-Padres game. Under 8 in the Brewers-Padres game tonight. We got Chachin against Lucchesi. So take a look at that. That's the one I like. Under 8 Brewers and Padres.
All right, no, but are the Brewers playing tonight, or is that tomorrow? I'm checking.
Maybe it's tomorrow.
No,
I hit them tonight.
You're absolutely right.
Tonight.
You're absolutely right, Mike. It's San Diego Padres.
Right, 9-10 game.
Yes.
Brewers versus the Padres. Over-unders 8. Chachin and Lucchesi, pretty good pitchers, but they're not household names. I like the under 8. We've been hot here. It was great to have a good day on Odds Couple because what happens to Carmen and I, someday, I had a great Sunday, but I didn't have, you know what? I would rather have a great Friday than a great Sunday. This week, it so happened they coincided. Toronto yesterday came through for me, the Toronto on the run line. Sunday seems to be a big day for favorites, folks. A lot of 200-to-1 shots right now. 2-to-1 shots to win certain games. A lot of favorites won on yesterday, so I'll look for some dogs over the next couple days.
Mike, I cannot wait till Wednesday at 3 p.m. Central. Vegas Scores and Odds presents the Mike North Advantage. Later in the week, we'll have a brand new episode of Bears 100 Proof with a special guest co-host. We keep it a mystery until the day of the recording. And we're going to have the Barflies movie podcast. I'm forgetting the title right now, but they're going to talk about one of the upcoming or one of the movies that have just come out over the weekend. They're going to review that.
You got such a treasure chest of great podcasts going. You're building it up like you wanted. Look what you're doing. New podcasts our reliable podcast, great podcast, people doing a good job. We appreciate it.
I want to be the Don Lee of the podcasting world.
Well, if you're Don Lee, you sold shoes at Florsheim. If you want to be Dan Lee, then yes. Of course, the great maven from Score who discovered who basically, when I told him about the Score, he said, boom. That sounds like a good idea, and now the Cubs are on, which still amazes me to this day. I
cannot wait to see that scene in a movie when you're talking to Mr. Lee at your restaurant and you're convincing him to open up a all-sports talk show radio station that eventually goes on to be the talk of the nation. That is going to be a treat. I can't wait to see that filmed.
Yeah, we're having some good fun. We're starting to get almost on to act number 2 now, and I'll tell you what, it takes time.
Oh yeah!
Like if you want, see, fictional movies you can write in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Biography movies are rough.
Absolutely.
Dates. What was the license number of the car? What did the driver's license? What did the license plates look like in the 70s? Unbelievable stuff, man. But we're really having a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah, and you got to write also with the budget in mind because you can't write stuff that's going to cost $150 million to film.
Right.
So there's a lot of little particulars that go into doing a biopic. There's no doubt about it.
Well, I'll tell you what. We'll talk more about that as the days go on. But we're looking forward to 3 o'clock. With my guy Aldo. We've been doing really well on that show. A lot of people all over the country listening to it. I heard a rumor the other day that people that were at the Grateful Dead concert liked the shows, something like that. Somebody said something to somebody I know. So that's good news. So word's getting out, plus they like the odds couple. They like the Vegas scores and odds show, but the barroom started it all. When I was talking to Carmen tonight, really, Bears Barroom and Aldo and I were the first ones to really talk gambling, and then the Sun Times with Mark Bodish, and that's how things started rolling for everything. So looking forward to seeing you Wednesday, my friend.
Okay, brother, I will talk to you later. Say goodbye to your fans.
So long, everybody.